Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. We got a couple boxes of parts over the weekend and we got some parts shuffled around. I wasn't out here at all Sunday, Monday, or Tuesday because I was doing stuff with family. So I didn't really get a whole lot of time to spend out here in the garage. When we got home, we was, a little tired, so we just wanted to kind of hang out, relax on the couch, and unwind for the night. But like I said, we got a couple boxes of parts that showed up this week, or over the weekend and throughout this week here. So I think it was Monday, the LS fuel pressure sensor adapter showed up, and I don't know why they got to advertise it as LS, because it could just be -4 female to 8th MPT female. But I guess for whatever reason, I've been trying to find something like this, and for some reason one of them just popped up on a recommended post on Facebook, and it was kind of weird. But I seen it and I was like, oh wow, okay, so that looks exactly like what I need. So I started looking into it, and the Schrader valve was the same threads and everything as the Neon that comes on the LS engine. So that's all those guys do, is they use this adapter, and then it goes from the threads they have, which is pretty much just a -4, and then that'll seal up, and then we go to the 8th NPT female, and then you can use any, a pressure gauge for just about any manufacturer that sells an 8th NPT. So we made that easy without having to use a couple of adapters and make it look pretty janky. So I'm glad I found that part. It came in, fits great. I'm gonna reroute this wire, get it away a little bit differently. And then one box of most of the stuff that I need for the staging brake showed up. I got everything but the bulkhead fittings, which kind of sucks, because with the bulkhead fittings, I could have at least got most of the stuff placed. If I had to wait for this line, that would have been fine, or this 90 for this one, that would have been fine, because I could have really got the rears done and then got the brake lines pulled out and got get the lines flared and everything. But this line here is going to be what hooks to the T that comes off the master right here. So let me get this line fed through quick. Let me show you how this sits. So it's got a 90 on both ends, but because I couldn't buy one with a 90 on both ends, they all had a 90 and then a straight, I had to get a -3 90. So essentially, I'm not gonna stuff it behind the brake line here yet, but it's gonna hook onto right here, and then I'm gonna swing it over between here, and then I'm gonna drop it down behind the brake line there, between the throttle cable and the booster, and then bring it over like this to the bulkhead fitting that's going to come through right there. And then the bulkhead fitting on this side will be straight, and then the 90 will be inside, and that'll hook to the line that feeds the staging brake inside the car. And then once I get the other one, I got everything I need for that side. So this was the T that I was talking about. As you can see, this is the setup I need. It's got 2 males here and the female on this side, where this setup had the female on that side. So one of the brake lines would have had to have hooked here to leave the car, or to leave the setup, and I didn't want to set it up that way. I wanted to try and do this as clean as I could. So we ended up we're going to do the bulkhead -3 union to go into both, and then hopefully where it sits through the car will be close to here. So I'm gonna have to get it all tightened up and then bolt the plate in, and then this guy will stick out. So I'll get all this tight, and then I will have the passenger side line break off this way, and then the driver side line, I'll just hook this to it and then jog it off, cut the other line, and we'll hook that up, and then basically it'll just sit in the car like this, and then hook to the factory brake lines on either end here. So that'll work out kind of nice. That'll keep things cleaned up there. So I just got to wait on those bulkheads. We can get that stuff done. I just wanted to place everything in, make sure it was going to sit right, look good, not be tight or rub against anything too much. I already have the union, so that one's set up with the T, so I already got the line and everything. So this one's ready to go under here until that bulkhead gets here, and then I can, like I said, we'll take the lines off, hurry up and try and get this stuff hooked up before we get too much brake fluid through the lines, and then at least get it ran to the bulkhead fitting and out of the car where it can drip, and that'll actually help us with the bleeding of that. So if that works, I would actually be kind of happy with that, but I'm not expecting it to. I'm okay with just power bleeding it or vacuum bleeding it or whatever I'm going to do. So with this guy showing up and everything fitting right, I'm going to wire the fuel pump relay, get that guy set up, set off to the side and somewhere out of the way so we can clear what we're doing with the velocity stack. And then I'll go ahead and get all the fittings tight, make sure we're ready to rock. And then what I might try and do is hooking a battery up, and then I'm going to use a switch that I have, which is kind of nice because it's a convenient thing to do when you're setting base pressure on your fuel pump. You could just take the factory fuel pump relay out, set this guy in, it bypasses it, turn it on, turns the fuel pump on, at least if you're using a factory fuse box with a controller and everything, and then just jump in the relay and send it power to the pump, see if we can make base pressure, make sure that there's going to be no leaks in the system. Once everything shows up for the vacuum lines, which at the latest I hope is going to be the 2nd. I did check tracking today and it still hasn't shipped yet, But I mean, the second's still a week out, so I guess we'll play that by ear and see what happens. As soon as that stuff shows up, I can actually try and start the car. Put it through a heat cycle, change the oil out, put the T6 back in, put some zinc adder in it, and then we'll get the turbo broken and then get this guy scheduled for the dyno as soon as possible. I'll work on the headlight and stuff later on. I'm not worried about that. I could just stuff a stock one back in it for now, just to get it to the track or whatever. Obviously, we don't need it for the dyno. I'm not even going to put a bumper on for the dyno. So we'll get it to the dyno. We'll get her tuned up, and then we'll bring it back here. I'll finish whatever I can. Hopefully get a roll cage, or see if somebody will still let me make passes without it. I guess we'll play that by ear. Hopefully I don't get kicked out if we go. So I'll have to go somewhere where I really know the people, and maybe they'll trust me enough to try and make some passes as we sit here, because she is gonna be empty. We're gonna start working on this fuel system here and see what we can get done. So we got the relay in, we got our power and our trigger coming in from the factory harness. And then, so what I ended up doing, you seen me in the video working with the fuse box. I had an old lead that I wasn't using. Fuse box tabs are all kind of busted up on this. But I had a lead that I wasn't using, so what I ended up doing with that lead is I stuffed it back in the fuse box and I added another circuit. So I'm using a factory 30 amp, it's actually a 40 amp circuit for the ABS pump. So I put a 30 amp fuse in it, and then I'm using the factory 10 or 12 gauge wire, whatever it is, and I'm sending power to the relay. Got my power to my trigger, kind of zip tied here with my wastegate and tip solenoids. And then I just got the power wire looped. We used a factory harness retainer, and I got that guy kind of set off to the side. We got that set up, so now what I'm gonna do is get all the fittings tightened up, and then probably dump a little bit of fuel in here, hook the battery up, put that switch in the relay, see if we can make fuel pressure. Oh, here we go. Must have put my switch back. Yep. All right. So I'm also going to get my phone, because a coworker of mine wanted to actually know how loud this pump is going to be, because I think he's looking at like 1 or 2 of them for his car, maybe 2 of them. I don't know. Give me a second here. All right. Oh, you on the phone? Let's make sure we got no leaks, I guess. Okay, well, it's not too bad. It's not terrible. Definitely makes some noise. But we got pressure, boys. We got 50 pounds of fuel pressure. Yee-hoo. But yeah, there it is. So we got a 50-pound base pressure, and we're probably just gonna leave it there for now. We got no leaks. We know she moves fuel. It's sick. All right, so that's another thing done. This is a good time. This is some good stuff here. We actually made fuel pressure. So, got the fuel system done on that car, got everything kind of cleaned up. I was kind of playing around earlier because I am going to do a little bit of a spoiler here. I ordered a battery for this car and for this car. A buddy of mine, Matt from Origin's Garage, he was telling me about the anti-gravity batteries, which we had talked to the guy while we were down at PRI, and I didn't really think a whole lot about it at the point, or at that time, because it wasn't a real big priority. And he was telling me about the prices and how much these batteries weigh, so I started looking into them. And I found a 360 cranking amp battery. Shipping weight on it is like 2.65 pounds. So I bought another one for this car at the same time on the same order. And that one come out to I think like 2.95 pounds for a 480 cranking amp battery. We're gonna work with those batteries and hopefully they work out. I really am looking forward to them because the two batteries that I ordered, combined weight on them, like I said, if it's 2.6 and 2.9 and 2.6, we're at 5.5 pounds. Two batteries. The one battery that I have for this one, that AC Delco one over there, that single battery on its own weighed 13.8 pounds. So the two batteries for both of these cars combined are almost a third of what that battery is just for this car. So I think this one was like 203 or something like that, and this one was 233, and then they get you for tax and free shipping because it's on a deal and everything else. But so we got the fuel system button up with that one, just waiting on the rest of the stuff for the staging brakes. And then once I'm ready to actually bleed the brakes, then I'll worry about getting the calipers ground down and everything. But until we get to that point, I'm not going to push the issue too much because I got that stuff done earlier. And I am in the midst of waiting on parts to really do much else with the car before I worry about completing things. Like I said, other than grinding those calipers down. What I'm going to work on now is getting some stuff done on this car. So we moved over here today after we were done with the other car, and I could not find anybody that could sell me just terminals, and I dug through my box and I was hoping these would work, but they didn't. So what I ended up having to do, and I hated doing it, was taking a brand new Welbro fuel pump out of that box because I have a whole kit, or I had a whole kit. I used the filter and stuff in here, the filter and the O-ring, but I broke into that kit and I cut the harness so I could splice in these leads. And as you could see in the video, what I did was I twisted them together, soldered them, shrink wrapped them with marine grade stuff, so it's got glue in it. And I'm hoping it doesn't break down in the fuel too much. It is just going to be in pump gas, so I mean 10% ethanol. I can't imagine if it doesn't go after the insulation on the wire, I can only imagine that it's going to be safe on the shrink wrap. So hopefully that stuff works out. So really, all I'm going to do tonight now is I'm going to set this guy in the fuel tank. And then I'm gonna get this one, and we're probably gonna wrap it up. So let me get that done. Let me see what time it is, and then because I do have a couple errands I want to run in the morning, I want to go to Caucholin and get the window regulator for this car. The junkyard is open from I believe 8 to 5, and I work from noon until 6:30. So it kind of puts a pinch on it. So I'm gonna have to take care of that in the morning. And then once I get out of work, I can start working on the blue car here again. So I'm gonna set this canister in the fuel tank, and we're probably gonna wrap this one up for the night. So let me get this guy dropped in, and we'll see where we're at. Just make sure you put new seal in when you do this. It's not worth it. especially if you're doing it in the car. I would not want to waste my time. So there is a tab in the threads here, and you definitely want to line that guy up. That way your sending unit works the way it's supposed to. Walk it in around that seal. Make sure that the seal don't get pulled in. You can rotate this once you get it in a little bit, as long as you got leverage. And just walk it on, line up that flat spot, ring back on. And then tighten it up. Good to go. Good to go. It's getting a little bit later than I thought. We got the fuel canister stuffed in the tank here for rice car, so we're ready to put that guy in tomorrow after we get my haircut, hopefully. If not, then it'll be when I punch out of work. We did get the fuel system done on white rice here, so we're plumbed, we're ready, base pressure is set. We just got to plumb the vacuum lines and then we can try and start it. So we're making good headway with that car, just waiting on a couple parts where I can finish the staging brake. Waiting on Lexon so we can get that stuff finished up. So all I got to do now is get the rollover valve mounted, and then I can put the tank back in the car, and then I can go ahead and we'll pull those parts out. We're gonna pull the rear control arms out. We're gonna pull the rear control arms out of the car. Gonna pull the rear control arms out of the car, and then I'm talking to a guy in Ohio that has a set of front calipers that he's gonna ship me, and I'll get those guys broke down, and then I'll get the calipers. And then I'll get the front calipers for the blue car here and the rear control arms resprayed and like kind of a matte red, so we can get as close to the rear caliper as I mentioned in the previous video. So I do have another set of calipers coming. We're not going to bother putting the bronze ones on. We're not going to bother putting the copper calipers on this car here, so we're just going to move forward with red, and we're going to do it once. Same thing with this car. I think we did come to a decision that we are going to do that in red, and that was a recommendation by my buddy Matt over at Origins, same Matt I talked about earlier. But so yeah, same Matt we talked about earlier. And there is a because he mentioned doing them in red because it would kind of go with the red ring that we got on the Bassets here. So kind of made it sound like a good plan. So we're going to ride with it, and we're going to get those front calipers done in red. So we're going to get both front calipers done in red, rear control arms done in red on these cars here. So we're going to get those parts powder coated as soon as I hear back that I can go pick up the spindles. We'll drop that stuff off. I can get the fuel lines done on the blue car here, get the master out, get that swapped over because that is rusty, get the booster pulled out of it, because that is rusty, get a cleaner one put in, put that non-ABS master in it, get the brakes bled out, well, not get the brakes, get everything kind of set up, get the lines hooked up, that way we're ready to bleed the brakes as soon as I get the front calipers back and put back together, and then we'll stuff those guys in the car. Hopefully by then I'll have the spindles on, maybe the transmission and the engine will be in the car. That way, once the calipers do show up, I can just cram those on, put the rotor, put the rotor on it, torque the axle nuts down, maybe even put the wheels and tires on, and then set it on and then we can start working away on everything else. So pretty much once the motor and trans is in on the blue car here, I can get the intake manifold ported for the new throttle, or for the 62mm throttle body. I can get the cold side pipe done and set up because your intercooler is in. Then I can set the radiator and the fans in, get the heater hoses and everything hooked up. And then once I get the turbo, then I could set the turbo in the car. And actually once I get the manifold and everything in, then I can worry about getting my fuel lines plumbed, get my regulator mounted, and get that stuff handled. So those are a couple parts that I will have to order. It's just going to be the couple things to go from the factory fuel line to a regulator, from the regulator to the rail, and then maybe a short piece of line if the return line for whatever reason isn't long enough to hook on to the regulator, or to hook on from the regulator and run back to the tank without being in one piece. When I put it in that car, I had the regulator over here on the battery tray, and I had to buy an extra 2-foot piece. But being that we're going to have the regulator on this car mounted similar to this one, I think, because we are doing a similar motor mount setup, that return line should definitely be enough. So hopefully it is. That way I don't have to piece this guy together. If I do, whatever. I mean, I'm not worried about an extra foot of line. I got a union. I would just have to get a piece of dash 4 to make that work out. We definitely made some gains today with the parts that showed up over the weekend. We're actually able to get a couple more things done on the car, so that's a few more things off the checklist that we got, so we're definitely getting there. I am going to get this one wrapped up for the day. You guys have yourself a good one. If you haven't already, check out our Facebook, check out our Instagram, give us a like on the Facebook page, follow it if you want to stay up to date. Do the same thing on Instagram, give us a follow. We definitely appreciate all the feedback we get from you guys. Comments on the videos definitely helps motivate. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Like the video, comment with any questions you guys might have. You guys have yourself a good one. Stay safe, stay clean, and we will see you at the track. Thanks.